What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the Pika Pika Papa, and it is Sunday Fun Day, which means we're going to be talking about the cards that have been moving and shaking the most on TCG Player over the last 7 days, and that is the core of the video. But I thought this was an awesome opportunity to talk about one of the things I love so much about this Pokemon collecting and investing space that all of us are in. And when I was thinking about, kind of the intro this morning, I was thinking about how awesome it has been over the last, say, 6 or 8 months to see the collecting hobby and the dollars that are being spent kind of rotate out of the ultra modern and into some of these other segments of the hobby. I'm thinking a little bit older, that have been undervalued as far as I'm concerned for a long time. Now you can obviously see the graphic on the screen right now. You see that these are a couple cards we're going to talk about from those red and blue collection boxes back from the Generations era, right? And if you look over my shoulder, I've got one of them right here. Those boxes have been going for about $300, $310, and they feature the biggest names in Pokemon. You had Charizard, Pikachu, Blastoise, and Venusaur, right? Plus you get 4 generation packs in them, and literally for the last couple years, they were just flatlining at $300. And what that represents to me is the fact that there was always awesome opportunity in those boxes. You know that those are 4 of the biggest names in the Pokemon space. You know that the Generations was a fantastic, anniversary set. And so it was just a matter of time until it was going to explode in price, which we have seen. Now those boxes are going for like $600 or $700 on eBay, which is absolutely wild. And the reason that I kind of tie that into one of the things I love so much about spending my money here in this space is if you think about the stock market, and those aren't always one-for-one comparisons. I don't like comparing Pokemon cards to the stock market, but I think it's an awesome and relevant comparison here. In the stock market, you always want to buy the segment of the area that's undervalued, right? So maybe, tech stocks are flying high, right? But banking stocks are getting absolutely crushed. Now, we all know banks are going to do fine in the long run, so you buy those bank stocks while they're undervalued, and you kind of avoid those tech stocks that are overvalued. It could be oil, it could be telecommunications, there's all kinds of different segments, right? And you might not necessarily like the stocks that are in that segment, but it's the right thing to do at that time. What I love about Pokemon collecting is there is always going to be Pikachu, there's always going to be Gengar, my 2 favorite Pokemon out there. There are always going to be those types of cards that are either undervalued or being overlooked by the market. So I don't have to buy something that I don't necessarily like simply because it's the right decision to do from a financial perspective. That's what makes this hobby so special. You can combine your love of Pokemon with the opportunity for upside. For example, I guarantee there's a lot of Charizard and Blastoise and Venusaur collectors out there, and they would have had for the last couple years the opportunity to buy these awesome boxes, put them in their personal collection, and still have this huge upside that we're starting to see realize in this particular space. So we're going to talk about that a lot. I've been talking about it on this channel for months now, but on the very next slide, you're going to see the TCG Player finally actually put it in writing and called out the trend as well. So with that being said, obviously we do a ton of work behind the scenes here on the Pika Pika Papa channel. If you enjoy this video, if you're having fun along the way, hit the subscribe button or give us a thumbs up. We do fun stuff like this all the time, and I'd love to have you along for the ride. So with that out of the way, let's start looking at the very next slide, which calls out what I was referring to, okay? Now I know the words are going to be really small, at the bottom of the screen for you, but what it says here is 6 to 12 months ago, we were talking about weekly spikes on contemporary sets, and now over the last few months, we've been looking at big moves on older cards as the collector money seems to work its way backwards, and that is exactly what I was talking about. There have been some phenomenal cards that have been so undervalued for quite a while, but now that we're seeing Sword and Shield start to soften, although I do think that Sword and Shield might have some upside here over the next couple months, and we're seeing Scarlet and Violet really start to come down, and I think we're still going to see some softness in the Scarlet and Violet set. But while all of that has been going on, what have we been seeing? What have we been talking about here on the channel? The XY era has been absolutely crushing it for the last 16 months, literally 16 consecutive months. The top 20 singles cards that come from a booster box from the XY era, the aggregate value has been going up. Sun and Moon has been on an absolute tear, and now we're starting to see even the promo cards like this Charizard EX. This is a fantastic card. It comes from a really rare, super expensive box. I think it was a year and a half ago we were talking about this card. This was a $20 card, and now it's all the way up at $98. So it just goes to show you you can have your cake and eat it too. You can find undervalued cards that give you this great opportunity for long-term upside potential, and still collect what you love and still get awesome pieces, in that personal collection or the littlest thing that you have set aside for investment. So I thought this was an awesome slide and an awesome call out from TCG Player right off the beginning. So next card on the list, as I said, is the Blastoise, and I mean, think about how awesome this card is. You got Blastoise right there in the forefront. And then who do you have chilling in the background? You got Gyarados, and you got Vaporeon, right? Like, this is such an awesome combination of Pokemon. And if you look 1 year ago, this was a $50 card. Over the last year, this thing has shot up 151%, with really most of those gains coming in 2025, because that is what we've been talking about. That's the trend that we've been seeing. We've been seeing a lot of the collector money shift from these ultra modern sets back into some of these older eras, and this card was just ripe for the taking for the longest time. So super excited to see this card finally reach potential, and I am a little bit upset that they're starting to spike because, I don't have a ton of these red and blue collection boxes, and I really wanted to snag some more, so I'm not sure if I'm going to go out and spend $600 or $700 for them when I know in the past I was able to pick them up for $300 each. That window of opportunity to buy those that I talk about all the time on this channel, the window of opportunity to buy those at what I considered a great price is over, at least for now. So we'll see. Who knows what will happen in the future? Maybe they'll come back down, but for now I am not touching them any longer. The next one, talking about Vaporeon, right? And I did a whole video a little while ago where I talked about prismatic evolutions and how I am putting a ton of money into prismatic evolutions. We talked about the pull rate of the set. We talked about, just the overall lineup of the set. We talked about some comparisons to some big sets from Sword and Shield. So I feel really good about the long-term upside. However, the one thing that we talked about too was the top 20 singles cards in prismatic evolutions, about how, the Sylveon and the Umbreon, I know they're super expensive right now. I know the broader Scarlet and Violet market is coming down, but I was talking about how over the next 6 to 8 months, I expect some of the top cards to probably start gaining in value, but I did expect some of the middle cards to come back down. Now, this could still end up being one of the top cards, but it is nice to see that it is actually down 11.83% versus where it's started off. So it's nice to see these cards, which were going for a ridiculous amount of money. This thing was up at the $400 mark not long ago, start to work its way back down as we see more prismatic evolutions, hit shelves, as we're starting to have more of this product ripped, even though the pull rates are really low, and we see some more of these cards hitting the market. I think in the long run, these cards are going to do just fine, but I am looking to see how low they will go and see if maybe there's some buying opportunities here, because I am a big believer in the set in the long run. Now, next card right here, and this is just the wildest coincidence. So if you watched my video on Wednesday where I did an overall review of the Scarlet and Violet era month over month, and I do that every single month. I do it for Sword and Shield, I do it for Scarlet and Violet. We look at the aggregate value of the top 20 singles cards in the booster boxes and how they've been moving. It's just a really fun video series, and it's been very predictive in terms of how prices will perform. Not sure if that will hold forever, but at least for now, it's been really, really spot on. And one of the cards that I called out was this Miriam card from Scarlet and Violet base set, and the thing that I said was this card had dropped all the way down. If you remember, before it came out, this was $100 and something card, and it worked its way all the way down to $20, which is just an incredible fall from grace. And yes, it's a trainer card. Trainer cards don't do great now. Back, I don't know, maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, trainer cards had this really hot moment where they were going up in price, but ever since then they've cooled down. But in that video, I called this one out and I said, listen, $20 is a steal for this card. I'm not saying it's going to be an investment that will grow up to $100 over the long run, but if you look at all of the base sets over the history of time, usually they have a trainer in there that at least does pretty well. And this one was a great value at 20 bucks. Now, the price has shot up to $38. This was obviously driven by a huge buyout. So there is no saying that it is going to hold this $38, $40 mark, right? When you look at the bright blue line, that represents how the price moves over time. And those light blue bar graphs represent buying volume. And you can see that like 300 of these were purchased in a very short period of time, which coincided with the big spike in price. So sometimes you have people who do that simply because they think the card's undervalued and they want to add it to the collection so they can sell them in the future. Sometimes you have people who buy them all out on TCG Player and then immediately relist them at a higher price. Not saying which one it was, but I am saying I'm not quite sure that the market's going to support this at the $38 mark, but I just thought it was wildly coincidental that I had just talked about this on Wednesday, and then immediately it pops on the movers and shakers list. So really, really cool. We'll have to see. I like the card. I love the artwork. Now, the final card on the list this week is another tag team card with some awesome Pokemon on it from Cosmic Eclipse. And Cosmic Eclipse has been on an absolute tear. I told you Sun and Moon has been doing really well. The whole era as a whole has been doing well, but Cosmic Eclipse has just been crushing it, right? And here you got Togepi, you got Cleffa, you got Igglybuff, all three of them on this awesome tag team card. And we have seen a lot of these that have been way undervalued. I'm talking about cards that were going for this was an $8 card a couple months ago, right? We've seen these cards coming in at $8 that over the last year have really shot up. This is up 190% over the last year, and it just goes to show you that for that era, as we're getting into the next, whatever's beyond Scarlet and Violet, right? We're getting into the XY sub-series that's coming up. Scarlet and Violet's going to sunset with Destined Rivals, and so while the prices were high there, people started looking for value in the past. They started to look in the rearview mirror, and this is an awesome card. Is this going to be, again, just like the Miriam card, is this going to be a $100 card in the future? Can you buy 1,000 copies of these at 23 bucks and, you know, go ahead and have a huge windfall in the future? Probably not. Like, I don't think this card's going to shoot up to $100, but if you had identified this as a potential card when it was going for $8, do I think picking up 10 of these at $8 would have been a really cool move, because you just have this feeling that in the long run the value is going to be unlocked? Could have been a really cool move. So outside of that, those are the cards that have been moving and shaking the most on TCG Player over the last 7 days. I love the concepts that we're starting to be able to grasp. I love everything that's happening in the market right now. But guess what? Just like the older series is in favor now and Ultra Modern is still dropping, there will be a time where the momentum is going to shift. Ultra Modern, Scarlet and Violet, Sword and Shield are going to get hot again. Sun and Moon, XY, the older stuff is going to get cool again. Like, don't be surprised if Black and White doesn't start to heat up, especially because, well, only because we have Black Bolt and White Flare coming out, you know. So you always have to keep your finger on the pulse of what's going on in the market. That's what I try and do for you all here. I know how hard you work for your money. I know how hard I work for mine. I want to make sure that you spend it with the best information you have at hand. So with that being said, if you enjoyed the content, if you had a ton of fun, hit that subscribe button or give us a thumbs up. Those two small things go a long way in helping my small channel out. I hope you have an epic rest of your day. I appreciate you more than I can say, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, everybody. Bye.